Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Let's get this show on the road. I'm thinking I'm going to have to do this presentation in English. Anybody who is English speaker? Okay, that's plenty of people. Okay, we'll do this in English. Great. So, good afternoon. My name is Lex Crielaars, and I have for you today a presentation, Hacking Through the Eyes of a Threat Actor, Exploiting Zero-Day Vulnerabilities Like a Nation State. I have some good news for everybody because I'm not going to be talking about AI for 30 minutes. I'm pretty sure that everybody has been AI all day long. This is zero AI. So, okay, good. So, Lex Crielaars, I am a dark web threat researcher, whatever that means. I consider myself more of a dark web tour guide. This tour, however, has no insurance, so this is a money invested, money gone type of deal. But it is going to be a great tour nonetheless. So, what are we going to talk about today? Just a bit of definitions around the things that we're going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about threat actors. And just so that we have the same awareness around the concept of threat actors, I have divided them into three categories. There is the hacker, there is the cyber criminals, and then there is the nation state. And this one is going to be the majority of what we're going to be talking about today. How do these three differ from one another? Okay, so the hacker is the solo guy. It's the lone wolf, operates by themselves, maybe loosely cooperating with other hackers, but not really nothing official. They don't have any funding. They do everything. They have a day job, and then in the evening they do hacking because they want to. Their motivation is purely opportunistic, and they just want to do damage because they have certain political or geopolitical ideology, religion, things like that, and they just want to go out and just, kick in some doors, DDoS some targets, deface some websites, things like that. When I'm talking about hackers, script kiddies, that is that category. Second one are the cyber criminals. These are more professional, operate in teams, 4 to 20 people-ish around. They are funded by their own operations. They are financially motivated. So the money that they make, that they earn, and I use that in the lightest term possible, in their extortions and ransomwares and everything, that is what they use to fund their operations themselves. When they target organizations, this is very much cost-benefit. How much time, money, resources, everything does it cost to breach this organization, and how much money can I then pull out of them via extortion? If the cost is very high and the benefit is very low, then they don't do it. So it's very, very opportunistic. Why do they do this? Money. The almighty dollar is what is interesting to them. They are very little interested in religion or politics or things like that. They are in it for the cash. And then last but not least, the nation states. Okay, the nation states, they're the government, basically, or at least the government says they're not the government. They just want to wash their hands and make them clean. But it is very much government or government affiliated or government sponsored. Sponsoring means funding, means from the government. So these organizations don't have to worry about where their next paycheck comes from because they are basically government employees. And their targeting is mostly geopolitical. So whatever the government says they want becomes the target. This is geopolitical, this is corporate espionage, this is high-tech customer data theft, things like that. War, like military information, those are the type of things that these nation states go after. Yeah, and since these people are just on the payroll, there is really no concern for them on, is this next going to be successful? Am I going to be able to get my salary next month, like with the cyber criminals? Because, yeah, they're on the payroll. Okay, so in an ideal world, all of our day jobs look like this. Very calm, very relaxed, no worries. And that would be the case if we would not get attacked by hackers, cyber criminals, and nation states. Unfortunately, most of our days are closer to this because we are being attacked by hackers, cybercriminals, and nation states. So what do we do when we are attacked? Well, we've been doing it since the 19, 16, 18, 1700s. It is building walls. We build walls around things that we find important to protect. And we're very good at building walls. We've been building walls since the days when we were building castles. The king wanted a big castle to protect his land. Build walls, build towers, ta-da. Now this part is safe because it has walls around it. Now we build these walls to keep bad guys out. And when you have a reasonably high wall, most people can't get in. Unless people are a bit more advanced. So the better people are at scaling your walls, at jumping over your walls, at getting over your walls, the more advanced they are. Same thing happens for threat actors in the widest sense of the word. This lower wall might keep your average script kiddie out, but a slightly better team of hackers will be able to get over that wall. Now, you might think, I am going to build the biggest of walls. I'm going to build walls that are unscalable and impregnable. And with that, nobody is ever going to be able to get into my kingdom, network, infrastructure, or whatever it is that you are protecting. And you wouldn't be wrong. Because we've been doing it for quite a long time. Castle, walls, around everything that we find important. Ta-da, we are now protected. The thing is that threat actors, in general, are lazy. That means that when you have a wall that is yay high, a threat actor that wants to get over that wall will jump this high. Just this much higher to jump over this wall. Because why would I jump this high if this high is enough? In hacking terms, why would I invest 6 months into finding a zero-day vulnerability and then use that to exploit if I can do the same result with a $5 phishing campaign and then just steal somebody's credentials? I'm doing the vulnerability research and everything to breach your network because apparently you've set up your walls high enough in people, process, and technology that the $5 phishing campaign doesn't work. So threat actors will eventually need to jump over that wall. They will jump, they will try, they will fail, and at some point a threat actor is going to succeed. Now, I'm going to tell you a joke that will emphasize this point. And the joke is as follows. Two guys are on safari in Africa, and they see a lion, and they want to shoot the lion because they're, bad people. So the first one takes his gun, aims, fires, misses. He checks, no more bullets. So the second guy says, don't worry. He aims his gun, he aims, he fires, and he misses as well. And he checks his gun, also no more bullets. Now what are we going to do? Well, one guy takes off his shoes. And the other guy says, the lion is coming straight for us. Why are you changing shoes? And the guy says, I'm changing into my running shoes. They're like, why are you changing into your running shoes? Do you think that you can outrun this lion? And he says, no, but I can outrun you. Now, this lion is going to eat one of these two guys. If this lion is the hacker, he is going to be very opportunistic. And what hunter is this lion going to eat first? The first one it gets to. The slow one. The guy that can outrun the other hunter is fine. He's going to get away. If the lion is a cybercriminal team of hackers, they are also very opportunistic. They want to get paid. In this case, the lion wants to eat. Who is he going to eat? He is going to eat the hunter that is still sitting there and that is too slow. And after eating that one, the lion is going to be okay and says, well, that's dinner for today. It's done. But now if the lion is actually the nation state, and the nation state has been given the instruction, I don't want you to eat this guy, I want you to eat that guy. I don't care how fast he runs. I don't care that you're going to pass this guy as you're hunting for that guy. but this guy is the target. Even though he has running shoes, even though he has his buddy sitting there, they're no longer friends, this guy is going to get eaten because eventually this lion is going to catch up with him and he's going to have a snack. And this is what happens with nation states. When they have you in their sights, they will eventually jump over your wall. It might take a while. It might be jumping over your wall technically. They might find a vulnerability in software that you use. It might be finding a vulnerability in people. They might just send somebody to the pub that is closest to your office, spread some money around, get some people talking, and then eventually find some guy that is disgruntled, he's not happy with his job, and he's talking about the fact that his mother is sick and that he needs money for medical bills. And then the guy says, I'll give you 10,000 euros if you click on a link that I'm going to send you in the email, and after that you have to do nothing, but you get 10,000 euros. And the guy is just, unhappy enough and pissed off enough and desperate enough that he says, yes, that is also jumping over your wall, but not jumping technically over it, but abusing people. And the same can be done for abusing process. So people, process, technology applies to the wall, not just technology. People think, oh, the wall, more firewalls, more network sensors. No, it's 3 things that the wall encompasses. Now, why is this important? If people are going to jump over your wall, and it is only a matter of time, that means that every time somebody jumps over your wall and you don't know it, you have somebody in your network that you know nothing about. So we not only have the wall, we also have the camera. The wall symbolizes everything around prevention that we do to keep people out. They can't jump over the wall, they bounce off the wall, they don't get into your network. But once in a while, somebody is going to jump over your wall, and then the question is, did you see it? Did you see it happen? Because if prevention doesn't work, then step 2 is detection, and after detection comes meaningful response, preferably inside 5 minutes. And if there's no camera and somebody jumps over, I don't know. So having cameras on your wall is, in this case, a metaphor for detection and a requirement. Now, why is this important? I have seen organizations, and we're going to talk about one after this, that have yay high walls and they have yay high detection. That's great. So you can see everybody who failed to jump over your wall, you can detect, but everybody who successfully jumped over your wall, you don't know. So the lesson here is, if your wall is X high, your detection capabilities should be at least X plus 1. And with that, keep in mind that if you have very high walls, you will force the threat actor to eventually jump over this very high wall in a very advanced way, meaning that the method of exploitation that they use is very advanced. This is not an advocation for building low walls. Oh, well, just build a low wall so they can just step over it, and then it's very easy to detect. That's true, but then every idiot is going to be able to step into your network, so that is not something that you want. So do please build high walls, but also make sure that you have very high cameras to detect the moment that your wall wasn't high enough for this particular thing. Okay. So now we're going to talk about an actual example, actual incident response case of a customer of ours that dealt with this principle and how that exactly worked when they were attacked by a nation state. We're going to be talking about 2 applications. Ivanti EPMM. You might have never heard of those guys. It was formerly known as Mobile Iron Core. Oh, Mobile Iron. Yes, I know those guys. Good. This is the same software. They've been acquired. It now has a different name. Second one, Ivanti Sentry. Oh, I never heard of Ivanti Sentry. Mobile Iron Sentry. I know those. Okay, good. This is, again, the same software, but they have been acquired. What happened here? Well, a lot of bad things. We saw a threat actor exploit these applications and use that to get into the customer's network. For that, they exploited the API interface that was on Ivanti EPMM. And they had a vulnerability that allowed them authenticationless execution of all endpoints. They started the attack and then used months and months and months to actually come to the point of exploitation, which meant that log retention on that was very important for us to eventually go back into the history and find how they got into the network. And in order to, as much as possible, blend in with regular traffic, the threat actor was from Asia. However, they had compromised over 200 localized, in this case, ACES routers from people's home networks to bounce their traffic off of all of these routers, so that everything that they did looked like it came from the local network around which this company was situated, so that they would blend in the fullest. All in all, our estimation is that the vulnerabilities that they used, which were previously unknown, so these were free zero-day exploits, we'll talk about them specifically in the next slide, all three of them, we estimate that it was a 6-month, four-person job to discover these exploits and make them exploitable in a chain that would give them the capabilities to go from the outside of the network into the DMZ and then into the internal network. So this was definitely an organization that had the time, the money, the means, the people, the measure, the skills, the expertise to find and then exploit all these vulnerabilities. With that, they were definitely in it for the long run. This was not a, oh, we're going to break in once, steal something, and then we're going to leave again. All these measures point into the direction that they were going to breach this organization and then stay around for months, if not years. Part of that is the way that they orchestrated their entire attack, and all of their traces in the logging and everything were reduced to a minimum. Most of the attack was done fileless, everything in memory, and where files had to be created or were touched by logs, there were continuous processes running to clean those up. Okay, first vulnerability is a CVSS score of 10, which basically says, hello, I have an API. Yes, this API has authentication. Yes, not anymore. That was a very, very painful vulnerability. The second one was a way for an attacker to drop a file from the appliance onto the actual operating system that it was running on. And since you have a full access to where you drop that file, you could put it in a location that the operating system would pick it up and then run it, giving you full access to the underlying machine. And then the last one was a remote code execution vulnerability on the Ivanti Sentry, so that you could jump from Ivanti EPMM to Sentry. What does that look like? Okay, you have your DMZ, you have your Ivanti EPMM solution. That one has to be connected to the internet because everybody's home phone connects to here to get their emails. So this has to be connected here to the internet. Can't really help that. EPMM then talks to Sentry, and then Sentry talks to Exchange to actually get the emails. And then the flow is my mobile phone here, EPMM, Sentry, get me my emails, pup, 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 and I can read my email on my phone. So, step one, what did the threat actor do? They used the first vulnerability to take over the appliance by using the API vulnerability that they no longer needed to do any type of execution and authentication. Second was they could jump from here to the Ivanti Sentry, take this one over as well. Next step was deploy malware on Ivanti Sentry, use that to operate a reverse shell directly into the internet. So this wasn't needed anymore after they had reached that point. And from here it was a simple step into the Exchange environment because Ivanti Sentry has to connect to Exchange. So all the firewalls are open and everything is accessible. So they just piggybacked onto here, eventually being on this machine, doing standard lateral movement, privilege escalation, and then going from Exchange admin into domain admin. So that first vulnerability, what does that look like? Zero-day exploit, so it was not known at the time. And the simplest example I'll give you is this. This is the documentation for the API. Normally, when you talk to this API and you want to do a get or a post, you have to authenticate, username, password, base64 authentication token. However, the endpoint that you're talking to, if you add /mifs/AAD in front of it, it completely disregards all authentication. Correct username, correct password, wrong username, wrong password, wrong authentication token, doesn't matter. It just does what you want, which means that you can get all the users, you can create new users, you can create new admins, you can remove existing admins. You basically now own this entire appliance. It is yours. That was very easy. Second one. Now that I have full control over the appliance, I can exploit it with my second vulnerability, which allows me to drop a file onto the operating system itself. It is Linux. Linux has a lot of files that are regularly picked up by the operating system, read, and then run as a script. So by pulling apart the entire machine, I can find the location where I want to drop this file, so that it is only a matter of time that cron or something like that picks up the file, creates a local user, gives me root access, and I now also have full control over not just the Ivanti appliance, but also the underlying operating system. And with that, I now have complete control over this machine. The threat actor injected additional code to make sure that all of their logging that they caused was specifically removed from all of the necessary logs. They left all of the other logs alone, so they didn't just delete the log file, that would be suspicious, but they specifically removed everything that was in there that could point back to them. And from here, they could jump on from EPMM to the Sentry environment, which is what they did, and for that they used the third 0-day. Because between EPMM and the Sentry environment, there is something called the Hessian protocol. The Ivanti EPMM server needs to be connected from the internet, but this one should not be connectable from the internet. However, there are plenty of machines that are still connected to the internet if you check Shodan. This protocol also had a vulnerability which allowed remote code execution on Sentry from EPMM. Anything that you wanted to do with sudo, you could do, which could basically means I am now also root on this machine. From that, you write a payload to disk, it gets picked up, and tada, you now have full access and full root access on both machines. How did the cleaning up happen? Since Ivanti is running on the middleware, it's running on Tomcat, so it runs as a JVM. The threat actor wrote their own bytecode JVM that they also injected into the Tomcat framework. So every time you would reboot the appliance, it would also start up all the software that the threat actor needs. So rebooting the appliance didn't do anything. In fact, Tomcat would just start up all the malicious software right along with all the Ivanti software as well. And one of them was a file called me.war. It was fully written in bytecode, so it was quite complicated to reverse engineer it, but we got it done. And what we saw was that it would check these files for these entries and remove those lines that pointed to everything that they did and pull them out of the log files, but only those entries. All the other logs would remain in place, and you wouldn't really see or notice that somebody had tampered with these files. The only reason that we noticed this, was because they messed up. They did it wrong on one machine. And by seeing it there, we went through all the other machines and said, they had to have been on this machine as well. But we can't find any logs. And that was the only indicator that we had that they had run this application on that machine to erase all of their evidence. And if it wasn't for the fact that they messed up on one machine so that we could get this file and could then check and see how it works, we never would have known. So if it wasn't for human error, we would have been none the wiser. Okay. So, what have we learned? Because Interesting case. This organization was breached. There was a significant moment between the moment that they were breached and that they were detected. Detection happened on the lateral movement on the exchange environment. So the entire zero-day exploitation of Ivanti EPMM and Ivanti Sentry was completely unnoticed by this particular organization. It wasn't until they moved further into the network that the threat actor was detected. Now, something that you should need to know is that Ivanti, both software components are appliances. So Ivanti gives you the box and says, here is our Ivanti EPMM appliance, and here is our Ivanti Sentry appliance. Please install this into your DMZ, connect these and these and these ports, open your firewall here and there and there and there, and then you can use our software. And with these appliances, you have to trust, believe that these appliances are configured and hardened and everything according to baseline, and that the vendor has done their hardest and best to make sure that that appliance is safe and secure. And it turns out that that is not always the case. So, the next time you are looking for a new software product or a new service or new something, and they come to you and they say, well, for that we have an appliance. There's a couple of things that you have to ask yourself. How certain am I that this appliance actually lives up to spec and is safe? Because you're just going to put something in your network that you have no control over. You do not have root access to this machine. You do not have access to the underlying machine at all. You do not have log access to those machines. If you're lucky, the appliance does some logging and you can send the logging somewhere, but that's only if you're lucky. And you have to ask yourself, how willing is the vendor when it comes to doing triage? In this particular case, I am sorry to say that the vendor was not very cooperative when it came to, hey, we need to get access to the box. We think that it has been compromised. We think that the threat actor already has access, and we want to check. So we want the root password so that we can log in and we can check and do forensics ourselves. The vendors that you have now and the appliances that you have in your network now, do you know that if you call them up now and say, hey, I need deep level access into these appliances because I think that they are part of the security breach that I have at my company, what are they going to say? Because if they're going to say no, or if they're going to give you a hard time, that is going to enormously frustrate your forensics process. And if there's anything that you do not have time for during a security breach, it is enormous frustration. I can tell you that from first-hand experience. So, important, if it's an appliance, what type of logs can you get from it? Is it only application logs, but can you also get system logs? Because most vendors do not allow any type of EDR or XDR agent on their appliances. In your entire network, everybody runs Microsoft Defender for Endpoints or CrowdStrike Falcon or Sentinel-1 or whatever. And you deploy that across all of your user endpoints and all of your server endpoints, and you have everything in tight control, except for the appliances that are actually the biggest black hole in your network, and there you have no insight, you have no control, you have no means of responding, and you have no means of gathering logs from there. So ask the question to your vendors. Hey, this appliance that you give me here, sure, okay, I trust you, but let's also verify how safe, how secure is this thing? Is it up to standard? Are you okay with me auditing it, or can you give me an auditing report that this thing does actually comply with sys hardening standards or something like that? And if the organization says, well, no, we're not comfortable with that, or so-and-so, or yada yada, then take that into consideration when you come to the eventual conclusion on, am I going to go with this vendor, or am I going to go with that vendor? Especially logs. Very, very, very important. Even when logging is available on the disk, and the vendor says, yeah, sure, if anything happens, we'll just give you the logs off the box. Well, we already saw that this particular threat actor was non-stop cleaning the logs. So even if you get access to the logs after the fact, it's already too late. So what you really, really need is some type of mechanism, or at least force the vendor to implement some type of mechanism that logs, not just application logs, but OS logs, are streamed off the box into a centralized log management solution in real time, because that is basically the only way that the threat actor cannot quickly clean up the logs so that they are not seen. That is something that did not happen in this case, and we've considered that a significant struggle during the incident response and forensics phase that we did here. Especially given the fact that there was such a long time between the actual first breach and the moment that, in this case, they were detected. You might think, but I'll just make backups of the appliance, because in most cases, the appliances are disk images or VMs or things like that. So I'm just going to right-click on the VMware and then do create snapshot, and I'll do that every day. And if something happens, I'll just roll back. Yeah, great. Unless in the case where the zero-day vulnerabilities that are being exploited are not known, and then you roll back to a version that was not exploited yet, but is still vulnerable because there is no patch to install, and then the threat actor just does it again. I would like to thank you all for your attention. I hope this has been a learning experience for you all. If you thought that this presentation was interesting, or at least give you a couple of things to think about, we're available on 5C13